Hey guys, check out Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0, brought to you by Mama Jumbo Shrimp, a fully updated second edition, reviewed and revised by an expert panel of certified Italian wine ambassadors from across the globe. The book also includes an edition by Professore Attilio Scienza, Italy's leading vine geneticist. To pick up a copy today, just head to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com. For all the super wine geeks out there, we have a special new series dedicated to you. We are reading excerpts from our new edition of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0. Wine lovers, tune in for your weekly fix only on Italian Wine Podcast. If you want to own a copy of this new must-read Italian wine textbook, just go to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com.
Emilia-Romagna. Historical background. The origin of viticulture in Emilia-Romagna has ancient roots, dating back to the first agricultural settlements around Bellaria and Fiorano Modenese, around the 6th century BC. However, there is also archaeological evidence of cultivated vines and perhaps the first timid attempts to ferment grapes as early as the 18th century BC, according to Benedetto Benedetti of the Civic Archaeological Museum of Modena. It is easy to think that Lambrusco grapes, perhaps the progenitor vine of Emilia-Romagna's viticulture, were used in those early attempts at fermentation, a theory that is also supported by the discovery of fossilized seeds and roots in its wild or paradomesticated forms dating from between the 20th to the 10th centuries BC. The remains, however, do not provide precise information on the use of Vidi Silvestris for wine production, nor do the words of Virgil, the ancient Roman poet and Mantuan native, who in his Eclogues called wild vines labrusca a Paleoligurian substratum, a term taken up by Pliny the Elder, who uses it in his Naturalis Historia, describing its characteristics and medical properties. Numerous other testimonies have ascertained that wine was produced in this region at least as early as the 7th century BC, which coincides with the Villanovan culture of Verrucchio near Rimini, the earliest phase of the Etruscan civilization. The great merit of the Etruscans was that they were also able to adapt to vine to the damp areas of the plain, training it to climb trees in order to distance it from the moisture closer to the ground. Vines were cultivated at the edges of fields, and the trees were connected to each other with tirelle, long shoots trained from tree to tree, either in the direction of the row or across, above fields planted with fruit, cereals, or vegetables. It was a stratified promiscuous agriculture, where the living support produced the leaves for animal feed. From this trellis came the Bellussi system of training, also known as eraggi or belussera, because the long shoots of the vines were pulled regularly to the center of the fields. Each support had 4 vine stalks around it. Quote, "The ray trellises are like long arms reaching out towards the sunlight," was how Professor J. Brennens, the eminent French viticulturist, described it. During the second half of the 6th century BC, conflicts between the Etruscans, Greeks, and Carthaginians made the Tyrrhenian trade routes risky, and traffic was diverted to the Adriatic or other internal routes. The Po Valley region was radically reorganized in order to make the landing of goods on the Adriatic coast safe and convenient, and to simplify the passage along the routes to the Tyrrhenian Etruria and the markets of the Alpine and Transalpine regions. The phenomena of internal colonialism caused by demographic growth as a result of improved living conditions was also linked by general colonialism after the collapse of the Tyrrhenian thalassocracy and following Roman expansionism and the loss of maritime commercial control. This crisis of the Etruscan way of life determined the settlement of Etruscan colonists, as indicated by the Rubiera Cippus, the Etruscan memorial stones discovered in the river near Ca del Pino in 1983. Perhaps the introduction of black grape for the production of sparkling wines called Perusina, supposedly imported by immigrants from Perugia, can be attributed to this migration as reported by Pliny. Marzabotto, Spina, and Mantova sprang up at crucial points in the territory, important centers for the exchange and consumption of wine, as evidenced by the discovery of ceramic symposium artifacts from Attica and Hellenic amphorae for transporting oil and wine. In the Roman era, the land was called Gallia Cispadana, and to cross it, the Romans constructed the Via Emilia, whose current route still follows that of the original Roman trunk road that connected the ancient Roman city of Ariminum, the terminal of the Via Flaminia, and the crossroads of the Via Mediolanum Placentia, overlooking the domains of the Ligurians and the lands north of the River Po. The road was designed by the consul Marcus Aemilius Lepidus to facilitate the rapid movement of legionaries and goods, and it will later provide the region with its name. In fact, Emilia-Romagna is the only Italian region named after a road. On this ancient road traveled, as the Italian author and poet Alfredo Oriani delightfully described, quote, hordes of acrobats and gladiators, carts full of statues and lions, processions of saints and prisoners, labarum and banners, eagles and gonfalons, relics and rulers, machines of war and industry, amphorae and cannons, shawls and armor, over every variety of men and things, gentle and nauseating, ignoble and sublime. From Piacenza to Parma, from Reggio Emilia to Modena, from Bologna to Forlì, from Cesena to Rimini, this is its current and ancient route, from which only Ravenna and Ferrara are excluded. An axis along which Etruscan wine culture developed, with the exception of Piacenza, where a Guturnium, a Roman amphorae, was discovered. During the rule of the Gauls, the development of viticulture declined, and following the Lombard invasions, which began in 568 AD, the region experienced a period of economic recession from which it only began to recover following the intervention of various religious orders that gave new impetus to that preservation of the vine and the culture of wine production. Indeed, it was the abbeys and monasteries that kept the winemaking tradition alive, especially that of Nonantola, which preserved the charters of the censi and canons of the time, in which we read, for example, that colonists and sharecroppers were obliged to surrender a fifth of the flax, a quarter of the wheat, and half of the wine they produced, proof of particularly abundant production. The vine in Emilia-Romagna was severely hit by phylloxera in the 19th century, with the destruction of 90% of the region's vine population. In this regard, it is interesting to consider the case of the Fortana grapevines of the Po Delta in today's Bosco e Liceo DOC area.
Are you enjoying this podcast? There's so much more high-quality wine content available from Mama Jumbo Shrimp. Check out our new wine study maps, our books on Italian wine, including Italian Wine Unplugged, The Jumbo Shrimp Guide to Italian Wine, Sangiovese Lambrusco and Other Stories, and much, much more on our website, mamajumboshrimp.com. Now back to the show.
The Fortana was planted on sandy soils inhospitable to phylloxera, and was subsequently spared the devastation that blighted over varieties. The Fortana is still planted piedefranco, that is to say ungrafted, without American rootstock. The reconstruction of wine-growing heritage in the region took place slowly, eventually giving rise to an extremely productive cooperative movement that grew stronger in the post-war period. Subsequently, while the cooperative wineries throughout Emilia-Romagna were oriented towards the production of large quantities of wine, some producers in the early 1960s began to take the path of quality that led to the establishment of the Consorzio Vini Tipici Romagnoli in Faenza in 1962, which would later become the Ente di Tutela Vini di Romagna, distinguished by the unmistakable mark of Il Pastore, the famous Romagna bandit Stefano Pelloni, who was active in the region in the mid-19th century. Another important event of the region was the founding of the Enoteca Regionale Emilia-Romagna in 1970. The regional body has the difficult task of making autochthonous varieties coexist with international ones, maintaining a strong territorial identity without ignoring international opportunities and encouraging cooperation between large commercial producers and small and niche wine producers. What truly distinguishes the region in terms of winemaking are the flat areas rather than the hills. The plains are the source of lighter, more drinkable wines, while the hills produce more structured, elegant, and persistent wines with a strong nose and taste. Geomorphology. Emilia-Romagna is a north-central region of Italy that borders Lombardy and Veneto to the north, Tuscany, Marche, and the Republic of San Marino to the south, the Adriatic Sea to the east, and Piedmont and Liguria to the west. As its name suggests, it is composed of two distinct areas. On the one hand, Emilia, with the cities of Piacenza, Parma, Reggio Emilia, Modena, Bologna, and Ferrara, and on the other hand, Romagna, with the cities of Ravenna, Forlì, Cesena, and Rimini. Half of the region is centered around the Po Valley, where most of the wine growing activity has developed, and the remainder is spread along the northern Apennine Ridge, particularly towards the border with Liguria, in the western part, and with Tuscany. While it is true that a wine is characterized by the paleoclimatic aspects of its territory, it is the hilly areas that are particularly interesting for wine growing, since they are characterized by a marly arenaceous formation, flysch, several kilometers deep, while the lower valleys have a gully morphology. To the west of Castellarquato, the plain Apennine boundary is marked by the first hill spurs where Pliocene and Pleistocene marine formations outcrop, often connected to the plain by large, terraced areas and recent outcrops of clay and sands from Pliocene and ancient Quaternary marine successions. The oldest area in the mountains are the Apennine Alps towards Tuscany, while the Po Valley slope is home to the allochthonous units originating south of the chain. However, the transition from the mountainous to the hills and plains is gradual, because of the tectonic structure that characterized by monoclimatic successions that are a little deformed at the front of the catena towards the Po Valley. Rising in altitude, the morphology changes, and with it the geological components of the Apennine landscape, which sees the outcropping of lithological complexes with a predominantly clayey component. From a climatic point of view, the influence of the Adriatic Sea favors wine growing along the entire coastal strip, while the rest of the region has a predominantly mountainous and semi-continental climate around the Po Valley. In particular, the gentle hills in the Modena and Reggiano areas suit Lambrusco vines and Pliocene-Pleistocene soils, Padanides, or an alluvial plains, alike the soil in the Colli Romagnoli area, southwest of Imola, Forlì, and Rimini, and partly in the province of Ravenna, formed the most part of the marly arenaceous limestone composition that was deposited between Langhirano and the Basal Messinian, with a prevalence of marl or sandstone depending on the original rock. Here, the structure is generally of medium compactness, loose and pebbly. Spungone is the local name given to the vast ridge of limestone of marine sedimentation, enriched by fossil shells and other organic residues, located by the southern outskirts of Imola to Marzeno near Faenza, and as far as Capocollo between Forlì and Cesena, where the areas most suited to wine production are found. Vine growing activity extends throughout Emilia-Romagna, including in the sandy areas of the Po Delta, in the areas of Ferrara and Ravenna, and in the Comacchio valleys. The Bologna-Romagna Apennine area is quite distinct from all the others and includes the areas west and south of Bologna, with the Colli Bolognesi area and the Sangiovese di Romagna area, which continues into the hilly zone behind Rimini all the way to the border with Marche. The lands of Lambrusco and its varieties are found in the Colli Emiliani and Modenesi, which include the hilly areas upstream of Parma, Modena and Reggio, while the Colli Piacentini are further north, located between the Tidone, Trebbia and Arda valleys, at an altitude of between 150 and 350 meters above sea level, where Barbera and Croatina are grown, along with other varieties including Ortrugo, Malvasia di Candia aromatica, and Trebbiano. Vineyards have also developed in the high plain of Piacenza, formed by the alluvial conoids of the watercourses coming down to the Apennines, which have created alluvial deposits with a gravelly and gravelly sandy texture until they take on the typical fan shape with valley firs at the outlet into the plain.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, Cin Cin.